Hey everyone, this is Olay from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
Okay. Welcome. It is another episode of Edu-Steps brought to you by Laddering Your Success. We are doing this free student mentoring. And I know normally it starts off with Olay. So you guys that listen on a regular basis, you're like, hey, what's happening? It's Festus. And Festus sounds like, somebody's gonna punch him in the nose. Well, that's because my allergies are punching me in the face right now. So anyway, we do have the other, is that the Three Musketeers, or there's the Four Musketeers, or the Quadriteers, whatever it is. So they're here, but they live outside right now. They enjoying it in DC. So I'm gonna welcome these other three gentlemen in that always come in and support and give their wisdom and give their best, their energy. So let's kick it off with Olay. Olay, you wanna say what's up to the people? You're still muted.
Man, good afternoon. Welcome welcome all boys and girls of all ages. Don't get it twisted. I may not be there live in the rec from my home studio base, but we could be anywhere. And that's the goal of LYS, right? Normally we're in Houston, but the goal, LYS has an international goal. And so, this is how it starts. We're out here in Washington, DC. God willing, hopefully next week or sometime this year, we could be, in India or Africa or Europe or Australia. We could be anywhere. But no matter what, the mission, the vision remains the same. And that's to help people find access to their purpose in life so they can make the world a better place. And so excited to be here. So excited to get this talking, man. I'm pumped.
Most Def. DeMarc, what's up?
Good afternoon, everybody. Coming to you live from Washington, D.C. The Laddering Your Success. We down here educating ourselves on some history, getting better one step at a time. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. We appreciate your time. I'm blessed to be here with you guys.
That's what's up. Thank you. And the birthday boy, or should we say the birthday grandfather or the birthday geriatric?
Grandpa, boy. I've already told you. Once I get my age, man, wisdom and knowledge, boy, just be flowing, baby. You know what I'm saying? The bank. I'm over here right now, man, struggling, man. My back hurt, everything, baby. You know what I'm saying? But no, man. Good to be here again, man. You know what I'm saying? Alive, you know what I'm saying? Down here in DC, just enjoying myself, man.
Chocolate City. So listen, everybody who's tuned in, we have a very, 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 very special episode. So, I don't know if you switch out the varies, can you make it more special? If you say a stupendous extra special episode, or if, I don't know what the good grammar is for that. But yeah, we have a wonderful episode today because we're bringing to you live and direct from South Carolina, Cedric Scott Jr. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit about his background, but of course, we're going to dive into it today. And so he's going to give us some game. He's going to let us know some things. But Cedric Scott Jr. has a background in education. He's a teacher, a principal, and now he's leading a movement of educators into the EdTech space. And so not only is he doing that, but he also offers a scholarship in memorial for his mother. And that's something that me and him have in common. And one of the reasons I just rock with him is because despite his personal hardship, he didn't give up on his hopes and dreams and education aspirations, and he's helping others do the same. So with all of that said, we want to welcome Mr. Cedric Scott Jr. Welcome to the building. Welcome to Edu-Steps.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you all for having me so much. Yeah, I'm just excited to be here and share and, give any information I can offer and, continue to support y'all platform with Laddering Your Success, because I think that what y'all are doing is amazing. And as brother mentioned, this is a global thing that y'all are doing. So yeah, I can't wait to see, how far you all take it and just how I can be of support. So again, I appreciate your time and thanks for having me.
Most def, anytime. Let's kick it right off. Talk to us about your background and what was like high school to college like for you. Did you just know I want to be in education? Did you struggle a little bit? Like, talk to us about that journey.
Yeah, the interesting thing is in terms of education and how I even got to that that point, it actually wasn't what I intended to do initially. My background, well, I guess taking it back to high school, as you mentioned, I was always really into science. So once I got to high school, my 10th grade year, I actually had one of my few Black male teachers that I can remember. The first one was back in elementary, middle school, was a science teacher. And then once I got to 10th grade, I had a chemistry class with a teacher by the name of Mr. Bynum. And I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So growing up there, went into that class, and I always knew I liked science, but it just kind of solidified it. And I think that, the representation aspect of it for, having Mr. Bynum as a teacher also, I think kind of cemented things. And that's actually what I ended up studying in college. I went to Virginia State University, which is an HBCU. I studied chemistry there, got my bachelor's. And after I graduated, I actually became a chemist briefly before shifting into education. But I always knew that I would go into education or some type of teaching at some point. But I figured, why not do it while I'm a little bit younger and, can really sustain and really kind of fill in and stand in that void for the students. So from there, I actually went through an alternative teaching program, which landed me in Washington, D.C. So shout out to the brothers out there. Hope y'all enjoying it. And that's where I began my education career. Started out teaching primarily in elementary school, 3rd grade math and science, and then kind of matriculated through, I think, the ranks, if you will, in terms of education. Went from teaching to instructional coaching and doing like intervention and things like that. And then ultimately became the assistant principal at an elementary school down there in Washington, D.C. And since then made the pivot primarily because I wanted to work remotely. I'm a father, newer father. My son is going to be 3 years old, but I just knew that, I needed to be home and be present, every possible second that I could. And with that, I was able to make the shift into education technology, working remotely, doing so for, the better part of 3 years now. So just kind of understood, different opportunities. And now I'm able to not only be here for my family, but be able to share with other people and potentially, how they can make those types of steps too. So that's what got me here for right now.
That is powerful. That is super powerful. Now talk to me about kind of, you touched on this representation and science. Right now everybody's talking about STEM. And I'm a believer in technology too. Obviously we have the LYS lesson planning app. We try to create materials for digital distribution because it's just an easier model. So can you talk a little bit about the eye you have for science and how that's kind of translated into EduHustle? And I guess because I mean, I don't want to get on it right now because we're going to get into it, but it's just amazing to me the amount of hustle you have had and learning technology and embracing technology. So talk to us about that, like that representation and how that impacted you and what you're doing.
For sure. I mean, in terms of the representation aspect of it, starting out with science, it's just something that, number one, it just was sparked by my inquiry and just like my curiosity. I was like into it. So, you get into it, but then I think what really helps with that is, of course, whenever you have people around you who can kind of, really, help you cultivate that passion. And, early on, as I mentioned, my first teacher in science, it was between elementary and middle school by the name of Mr. Preston. I just saw that he was really into it too, and to kind of share that type of passion and for him to, kind of just push and help me kind of navigate and understanding what it was that I was really into. Because I was into other stuff too. I played sports and all that type of thing, but there was just something about that. And with that, being able to kind of foster that curiosity and then understand what it looked like long term, it just really helped a lot. Because, a lot of times it's, you might be into something, or you might, be, dabbling in things or whatever, but there might not necessarily be anybody there, not even, just, I guess, even thinking about outside of the fact of looking like you, but there might not necessarily be somebody in that space that can basically talk to you about this thing that you enjoy and what it could do for you long term, right? So I had to really consider that. And, with that in mind, it just kind of always sat with me, especially considering like my mom, who was really deep into education and believed firmly in it. But, she had started planting seeds, when I was a kid, really young, before, unfortunately, we lost her to breast cancer. But she had always said that she wanted me to be a chemical engineer. And I didn't even know what that was, right? So I think that kind of started something. I mean, I always like to joke and say, hopefully she's happy that I became a chemist. But with that, just the idea of thinking about, I can do something else. I can be this thing, but then having people around me to kind of say, you can, right. And kind of point me in the right direction or show me different experiences that would relate to that. It just made all the difference, and I think that's kind of where I am now with it in terms of representation in STEM, where, we definitely have to look at where the need is greatest and fill these voids, especially for our young people coming up. And, if you look, down the line into the future, I mean, this stuff is not going anywhere, right? Technology is only advancing every single day. So it's like, why not be a part of it and be able to, ultimately reap some benefit from it? We're going to use it anyway. We're going to be a part of this whole society and this movement and all this stuff that's happening. So, I don't want anybody, who is coming up in the same type of situation that I was in, or, that looks like me, representation wise, anything like that, to be left behind. So it's, on me, right, to step in and say, here's how you can do it, right? Here's how I did it. And hopefully, that moves the start line a little bit, further ahead of where I began for a lot of our youth.
Man, I think that's awesome and amazing. Just number one, as hearing the voice of your mother tell you to go do something, and that resonating in you so much that it literally became who you are. And if I could talk to parents real quick who are struggling regarding how to get to that next level with their kid, just keep speaking positive affirmations about who they could become. And even if you don't have all the tools, I mean, obviously we try to create tools to help with that, but even if you don't have all the tools, just oftentimes your voice is enough. Your voice is powerful. And so just keep speaking to your children. And so your mom obviously spoke into you, and she passed away untimely, similar to my mother. Can you talk about how you handle that hurt, that pain, that struggle? Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important, and I definitely send my condolences to you and your family as well for your mom, because it's that's not an easy thing for anybody to deal with at any age. But for me, I'm actually one of 6 children, so with that, I was able to, I think initially, you go through kind of a lot of different phases in terms of grief and things like that. But I always go back to really thinking about the time when my mom was actually sick. And what really stuck out to me most, that really kind of settles with me every single day, is really honestly how my dad, handled it. I saw him, take care of her, help her to the restroom and all kinds of stuff like over that period of time, because it was kind of a drawn out process. And, that those things stick with me to the point now that, that's how I try to present and do things and take the helm within my own family with my wife and things like that. I always kind of keep that in my mind. But I think going back to that point, I lost my mom. She was 33 years old at the time as well, which is really kind of crazy, because now I'm going into my 33rd year of life. So it's just like that's a whole other thing. But I feel like it's really important for us to, number one, be okay and open with sharing our story to the point that we're comfortable, but then also taking that hurt, right, that pain, and then turning it into something productive. And that's really where I've kind of positioned myself in thinking about just even like the date, for like my mom's birthday, for example. Like my mom's birthday is April 8th. I actually went ahead and took that day, and that's my wedding anniversary now, right? So things that could potentially be kind of like triggering or make you kind of settle into a bad space. I try to think, well, how can I make light of this and turn it into something that's more celebratory? And losing my mom when I was 10 years old, you go through a lot of trials, tribulations, and phases and things in your life. And I think for me, what really just made the most sense was, what's the best possible way that I can continue to honor her memory and what she stood for and what she meant to me, right? At the end of the day, bro, I want to make my mom proud. And that's really what it boils down to. And by doing positive, beneficial, productive things in the world, that's my way of basically paying homage to her and saying, like, this is how I'm making you proud, Mom. And, just to make sure that, for whatever reason, I don't feel like her death was, in vain in any type of way. It's like always, every day, uplifting, celebratory. And, I always just see her smile, and that's what keeps me going.
Man, that is powerful, literally beyond words, to just one, to have that level of insight and wisdom, you know what I mean? Because so often, especially now, the conversations around mental health, it's like, not everybody can go get that counselor. Not everybody can not everybody can get, you know, that professional. And, you know, you stepping out like on faith, saying, hey, look, you stepping out on faith saying, hey, look, I could do things myself to empower myself in the future to again, kind of look at both sides of the coin. And it's interesting. I think of a quote from Myron Golden. If you haven't heard about Myron Golden, y'all need to go check him out. But he said, man, everything has two sides. He said, look, if you take a piece of paper as thin as it is, and you were to cut that piece of paper even thinner, it still has two sides to it. And so he's like, it's the principle of yin and yang, that there's good in everything and there's bad in everything. You know what I mean? And so oftentimes it depends on how we look at it, you know? And so again, just, you know, the Lord said the eye is the lamp of the body. And so if the light that's within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And so I love the fact that you took what could have been dark and made it light. So tell us about the scholarship, because you started touching on it, which I know the deadline is April 8th, also her birthday. So it's like, that's super dope. You got your anniversary, you got the scholarship. It's like April 8th gonna be lit, right? So tell us more about that.
Yes, so this is actually the second year that the scholarship is being awarded. Last year was actually awarded, the announcement was made on her birthday, which is April 8th. This year, the application itself is due by that date. So I'm going to try to maintain, you know, intentionality around, you know, even just like the dates in which things are processed. But I began it last year. Since then, I've actually turned it into a scholarship fund. So it is something that can basically be poured into throughout the course of the year. Started out as a $1,000 award. And what the purpose of it is, going back to, you know, STEM and representation, it is an award that is granted directly to an African-American student who will be pursuing a STEM degree. So, you know, got a lot of applications rolling in, which is great. I'm able to check the dashboard. But one of the nice things about it as well is that I actually set it up on a nonprofit platform called bold.org, where basically if anybody was to donate directly to the fund, they actually would be able to write the deduction off 100%, which is, you know, another added incentive. But within even the things that I'm doing within EduHustle and, you know, all the content and products and stuff that I create, I always take a piece of that and put it directly, you know, toward that funding as well. And this year, it is actually has broken $1,000. It's like $1,065 or something like that. So I'm continuing to just, you know, funnel money into it, and it's going to continue to grow. My ultimate goal really is at some point to be able to, you know, award a scholarship that's going to be like a full ride for a student, or even, you know, multiple. So I'm thinking big picture, long term down the road. But that's the goal, man, is to really, you know, really support, you know, our youth who are wanting to pursue STEM and giving the means to do so. And then also just making sure that, you know, we're being intentional about, you know, how we're framing and you know, setting things up. And again, it's in memory of my mom, who was really big into education. So, you know, outside of doing good things and good deeds in the world, I said, you know, let's put something, you know, solid behind it and, you know, put an amount on it. So yeah, I'm just excited to continue to be able to do it. It's been a blessing for sure.
Man, I love that. I love that. And real quick, I'm gonna welcome in our guests. Welcome. We're doing an interview real quick. And so we'll get to you guys' questions at the end. If you guys could just be patient and listen with us, follow along with us. So talk to us about EduHustle a little bit more. Can you go into detail? Again, I admire you because how me and Cedric met was through what's that, Clubhouse. And so it's like, you know, COVID was going on. And so, you know, just trying to connect with people, you know, Clubhouse was big during that time because, you know, everybody was in the house. And now there's this new platform, which, you know, if you're in your 30s, if you're a millennial, you know, you remember the chat rooms back in the day, right? You remember the call-in line. So it's nothing new to us. It's just a different way of applying technology. But next thing you know, from Clubhouse, I just seen you start moving and building and building. And now he's built a community over 1,000 educators, which is amazing because, you know, it's just him. So it's like he out here hustling for real. And that's the thing I love about it, because it's not like he's just making it up. He's living it, right? He's breathing it. And so talk to us about EduHustle, and then talk to us a little bit about more how that money flows to the scholarship.
For sure. Yeah, with EduHustle, I was traveling for work, and I came home from a trip, and I went to, where was I? It'll come to me later. I can't even think of where I was at the time. But I returned home from a work trip, found out that I had COVID. And luckily at that time, the company was good enough. They put me up in a hotel for 2 weeks. I unfortunately had to quarantine, of course, away from my family, my wife and my son, which, is not ideal, but had to go through it. And just like, kind of what I mentioned before about, taking those tough times and figuring out how to make something beneficial from it. I said, well, if I'm going to be here for, 2 weeks cooped up in this room, I need to do something that's going to help somebody, right? Do some good in the world. So the first thing I thought was, well, who needs help, right? Who needs support right now? And I was like, educators. It's tough. So with that, I started opening up rooms on Clubhouse. I didn't really know what it was at that time. Like the whole, even the branding or, the name EduHustle wasn't even a thing just yet. So I started opening up spaces and then, conversing with people and then making connections off the app, offline and just, talking to people. And one thing that, a couple of people had mentioned to me were like, yo, man, you need to make a community so that, we can kind of sustain a lot of, the connections and things that we're doing. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So I went ahead and opened up a Facebook group. Since then, it's been about a year, I guess. The Facebook group is pushing 2,000, maybe a little over 1,700 people, something like that, last time I checked. And again, it's just a matter and a means of supporting educators. And the primary mission of EduHustle is to help educators maximize their time, talent, and earning potential. And Festus, as you mentioned, I'm living this. And, those three kind of pillars are the basis for why I am doing, what I'm doing now, working in EdTech and why I ended up leaving the schools because, I thought about it and I said, becoming a new father, my son coming into the world, I was like, there's no way that I'm going to spend, over 2 hours, close to 3 hours in my car every day. Right. So that's your time. Right. I had to get my time back. I didn't want to drive, from Maryland up to Northwest DC and then back. It was too much. And then talent, educators are extremely, talented, passionate, artistic people that are very creative. And I thought, how can we leverage that, people's skill sets? Because educators don't just do one thing, right? They're very multifaceted. So I figured, how can we uplift that? And then the last one, I think it's kind of self-explanatory, the earning potential, which is, we already know what the disparity is with teacher salaries and issues and, having to, get a side hustle and things like that. So I figured, well, how can I make this more practical? And with that, just offering practical information, resources, supports, even, direct consultations and things like that to be able to help people move into new spaces, not necessarily just transition out of the classroom, but even if people wanted to stay in the classroom, because teachers want to teach. Well, how can you do that? And then add something in addition to that, that's still going to, maximize your skill set, right? So maybe, as a teacher, maybe you want to get into contract work, right? Maybe you want to write curriculum, something like that to add some additional income, but do something that's still relative to, what you went to school for and things like that. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's really just about creating some type of movement for educators to just let them know, like, you're supported and you can do other things, on top of your teaching and you don't have to feel like you're stuck or anything like that. So yeah, that's pretty much the primary basis of it.
Man, that's so dope because that's kind of, again, one of the principles that we teach in Being, Knowing, Doing is what resources are available and how to use them. And the fact that you didn't see a resource, you then created a resource, and I think that's so powerful about being first, right? Knowing your own values, character, and principle, knowing what drives you. And so to me, this is why we try to put that being first, because if you know who you are, you know where you want to go, you know what drives you, then, hey, man, you could just create at that point, right? It could come out of you. And that's something that oftentimes and I'll say this only because of this episode, as Black men, oftentimes your creativity is leveraged by other people, right? So you go become a rapper and then you go sign to somebody's label or you become an artist and then somebody else is selling your art and you don't get the full benefit of it. And so I love the fact that, you leveraged your passion for science, technology, and turn that into a hustle, right? And now that's a stream of income where not only you benefit, but other people benefit by way of the scholarship as well. So talk to us, give us the details on the scholarship. What website do we got to go to? What is the criteria for the scholarship? Kind of really break this thing down for us because somebody's listening and they need them coins so they could get into the STEM career. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so to access it, I mean, there's one of two ways. You can go directly to the site, bold.org, and search the name. The name of the scholarship is the Julia Elizabeth Legacy Scholarship. It's under the Julia Elizabeth Legacy Scholarship Fund. Or you can go directly to my website, which is eduhustle.co, EduHustle.co. And there's a section right there where you can click and go right to it and, submit the application. And I believe you should actually be able to still see the profile of the young woman who won the award last year, which is awesome. And it's nice to go through and actually, read that. And the process is pretty simple for any student who's interested. They create a profile on that platform, which is bold.org. After they create the profile, and it's a simple 400 to 600 word essay. And the essay topic is, why is diversity important in STEM careers? You submit that, it goes through a review process, and we make the announcement. That's pretty much it. In terms of GPA and stuff like that, I didn't necessarily want it to be, too bogged down with, merit-based things. I respect and appreciate that. And, I did well in terms of my own GPA and being able to, win scholarships and things, but I just wanted to make this really practical and accessible for the purpose of, again, dealing with representation, supporting our youth who want to go into this space. So that's it.
So that's dope. I got some follow-up questions because I want everybody to be clear, but I love where you're going. So let me get this straight. Any student in any state can apply.
That's right.
Okay. And do you have to be in high school, college freshman, or what's the criteria there?
High school seniors.
So high school seniors in any state who's interested in a STEM career, you don't even have to worry about your GPA. You just like, hey, I'm ready to apply.
That's exactly it. Yeah. I mean, I try to just make this thing, streamline and think, again, same thing with what I did with EduHustle was ask my question, who needs help, right? Where's the need the greatest? And, we always, hear things about, if you wouldn't necessarily, call the fire department if, the house down the road was burning, you want it to be right here, right? My house is burning, I need help. So we want to focus there. But yeah, with that, it's, again, targeted directly at African-American students, high school seniors who are planning to pursue STEM. And that can be at a 2 or 4 year institution. There is no really, delineation between that designation in terms of where they want to study. But the one caveat I do have, and people have asked me, and I had to make sure that I followed up and checked. I do believe that the platform is primarily based in the U.S. So I believe for international students, if they're coming to the U.S. to study, then they can apply based on that platform. And there are a bunch of other scholarships, not just mine on that particular platform. But that's kind of the one little caveat I like to throw out, is that it is based here in the United States where I am. So just as a heads up.
Oh, that's definitely dope. That's definitely dope. Now, I got one last question for you, but before I go to that last question, I definitely want to open the floor for our brothers in DC, if they have any thoughts, if they have anything they want to bring up before we ask the last question. So let's start with Olay. Is that cool?
Absolutely. I had a quick question. You talked a lot about your passion for science. And I think one of the things we always preach upon here at LYS is like, it's good to have passions. It's good to know your purpose, but always making time for your passion, right? So I'll give you an example. So, you may have someone who loves photography, but they're also very good at math and science. So they get that mechanical engineering degree, they get that chemical engineering degree, they get the mathematics degree, but like on the side, they still use that talent in photography to do photography, or they find some other unique way to still hold on to that talent. Do you still scratch that itch for the science and those things? And if so, what do you do with that?
That's a great question. And I mean, ultimately for me, what that kind of looks like is really the thought process that I had going into education, and then trying to figure out, well, how do I couple these things that seem so disjointed, right? Like being a scientist versus being an educator. And, what I landed on is it really is looped in and tied directly into like my own creativity. So I found other avenues to where it might not necessarily be, mixing chemicals up or anything like that, but the idea of going through a progression, of testing things and reproducing things and changing little tweaks. Even, for example, like I actually create courses for youth called Melanated Mathematics, right? You would think that this is not necessarily tied directly to, my background as a chemist, but it is, because you got to go through a whole process of, creating this, right? Producing it. It's just like, creating a solution in a lab, right? And then sharing it with somebody else. That's the testing phase of it, right? Is it good? Does it work? And then going back and saying, well, and you get into kind of like the engineering process, right? How do you tweak that innovation? How do you make it better? So, and I still, I tinker, with plenty of stuff because, I got a toddler now. So we're always playing around with different things. So yeah, there's always kind of different, kind of nuances and pieces that find their way in. And even honestly, originally, when I started kind of venturing into like the entrepreneurship world, the first thing I started producing was products for your beard. And I was mixing those things up myself, right? So I still even do that just to produce and create my own, my own personal products and things like that. So yeah, I mean, you find more ways, but I think the main thing is, just figuring out, well, how can I leverage this so that it's, it remains enjoyable, right? And it doesn't end up feeling like work, because at that point, you kind of lose a passion for it. And it's like, well, something that you've been, cultivating and grooming for all this time is now just feels like a burden. And I just didn't want it to ever feel like that. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question though. But yeah, I still try to get into it. And I think the one thing I would also add to that directly too is figuring out a means of supporting that passion when also considering other people, right? So for the scholarship, for example, like that's still fueled by it too, right? Because there's the benefit of potentially having another young brother or sister come up, become a chemist. So it's like that whole thing kind of lives on, and that legacy continues to grow and build, whereas I don't necessarily have to, again, be in a lab, but I'm supporting other, young people and even giving back in the community. And I've had some recent conversations locally here with, this one of the sisters who runs the Boys and Girls Club. She also has a nonprofit. I'll be doing some work with them, sharing, not only these resources, but even my background and my expertise and what I've done, talking directly to kids and supporting in Black homeschool co-ops, primarily homeschool co-ops in general, but Black homeschool co-ops for the most part, like through Facebook groups and things like that, and talking to kids, interfacing directly as to where I can just share my background and say like, hey, it's possible, right? So, for me, it's just basically being a living, breathing kind of embodiment of what you could do, right? And just being an example, because again, we know that we don't necessarily see or hear it often in terms of the media. So for me, it's just a matter of standing there and saying, yeah, people get on me sometimes and say like, you weren't, it's not that you're a former chemist, you're still a chemist, you're just not doing it right now as an actual job. So, but yeah, great question. I appreciate it.
Man, it's funny because when we met, I thought, what does beard oil have to do with children's math books? I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. So I was like, now it makes total sense, man. So that's super duper duper dope, man. I love it. I love it. Jamark, you got any questions? Dr. Crawford, you got any questions?
Yes, my question be geared more towards, I don't know if he can get into it right now or save it for later, but when he was talking about the EdTech space and sharing that information for other educators to, go into that field. So I would like to hear more information about that.
For sure. Yeah, in terms of, EdTech or education technology, I think that that's one particular aspect where, number one, I don't think that educators realize you're actually in EdTech regardless. You're actually in it. You're just on a different side. So for me, the idea was thinking about, especially with technology, right? Again, it's not going anywhere. It's in the world, right? But how do we then leverage our educational background and experience? You got to get to the point of thinking, well, education technology, what they do is they sell products, right? You think about all the kids learning online, right? They access these platforms, they go on, they do their math, they do their reading, whatever. He's behind that, producing that, that platform, that content. And what I've learned is that educators with that background, with that expertise, can be the people who actually inform what's being created. So there's a space there, right? There's, an opportunity, but I think that, and I can remember my own experience being, a teacher, being an administrator, you don't necessarily know that you can do that, right? You get kind of pigeonholed into, this is where you stay, right? Progression up to becoming a principal, maybe a superintendent is as far as you can go. But I think that there's a difference and a shift that has to happen. And this is where I really focus on a lot in EduHustle, is especially for educators, we are basically kind of conditioned to believe that education is just a system. It's not true, not entirely. The truth of the matter is that there's two sides to the coin. right? You got education as a system, but then you also have education as an industry, so business. But we don't necessarily get a lot of information related to the business side of things. So that's where I step in with EduHustle and talking about EdTech and things that I'm doing, to where, as an educator, let's say that you teach math, you can actually write math content, right? You can create math assessments and tests. You can create the books. You can inform or actually talk directly to the people who are building out these platforms that kids are going to do all their learning on, and say, you know what, this is not very good. This should be changed. This should look like this. That math doesn't make sense. The answers are incorrect, right? And you can then be, an authority in that space. But I think that it has to just be somebody, presenting it and showing it. And that's what I'm doing right now, is basically taking people by the hand and saying, you're not just a teacher, right? You can do more. You are more. And here's how I did it. And here's how you can do it. And I've been able to, support people in being able to do that. And I have 3 big goals for, EduHustle each year. Last year, the numbers were 10, 10, and 10. This year it's 20, 20, and 20. And that is to help 20 educators make $100, help 20 educators make $1,000, and help 20 educators land new jobs. And again, it's not to necessarily push anybody out of the classroom, but with that, I don't have to do that. I mean, people are already leaving in droves, sadly. But then other people who want to stay in, they're like, well, what else can I do? And instead of having to do something that's outside of their skill set and their wheelhouse, like, a lot of teachers do like Uber Eats and, drive DoorDash and stuff like that. It's like, well, you went to school, you probably have student loan debt, so why not be able to use that skill set, that qualification, that credential, to also add an additional stream of income, where you can do something like writing content or, presenting professional development or something like that, where not only are you adding a stream of income, but you're also using the current skills that you have and building up your resume, so that if you were to go and pivot and do something completely different, you could then say, I have this experience on top of my teaching, right? So hopefully that answers the question as well. But yeah, that's basically where I am with that, is just kind of help people just know that there are opportunities and other things available.
Yes, you answered the question. So definitely sign me up as part of that 2020, please.
I got you. Just let me know where you fall. Like, yeah, we'll check one of those boxes, bro.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Man, that's super dope. Okay, so the last question I got for you: if you were graduating high school today and you had to give yourselves some words of wisdom, right? You were talking to you graduating from high school today, but you thought, man, other people need to hear this as well. What would you share with your younger self?
The first thing I would say is give yourself some grace. Don't be too hard on yourself. The world's gonna be hard enough on you. Like, just take a deep breath. That's first, because the road can definitely get difficult regardless of what you're doing. Everybody has trials, tribulations, go through things. So prepare yourself for that. I would also say be very mindful of who you are around, right? Who you have in your circle. Make sure that you connect with, like, not necessarily just like-minded people, but people who are on an upward trajectory, right? And generally, we can tell, especially at that age, who's doing the things that are going to be, beneficial and productive later on down the road versus who's not. We all make mistakes. However, you gotta, have some understanding of discernment. So that would be, kind of the second major piece. I think the last thing would be really just to just keep going. There's really no other substitute for grit. You know what I mean? And we talk about, EduHustle, and one of the things that I heard from people related to that name was, the negative connotation around the word hustle, right? Hustle culture, whatever. And it's kind of like, you're just grinding, going. With that, there has to be an understanding within, those 3 components that I mentioned, but also, really just being true to yourself, right? The whole idea of hustle is really that last pillar that I threw out there for my younger self, which would just be keep going, keep grinding, right? Keep pushing, because we get to a point where we all are just kind of like, man, I don't know if I have it in me, right? I don't know if I could do one more day. But what I've learned is that there is a really fine line and a really small separator between, that quitting point and that breakthrough. So who knows what happens if you get to that point of being like, I'm tired, it's over, and you just quit. had you gone one more time, right, one more day, who knows what would have been on the other side of that. So just keep going, keep grinding, and, you know, keep your head down, keep your legs moving, as they used to say whenever I played football. That would be the big thing, you know, just straight forward, straight ahead, and, you know, just do what you can. Just do what you can, and the rest will essentially take care of itself. And control what you can control. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I think it's so dope. Again, just that aspect of like, there's a mental hustle and then there's a physical hustle. And so you got to do both. You know what I mean? Like, especially, sometimes, again, we use this as a way of mentoring students and giving that mentorship, because now everybody got that mentorship mastermind you can sign up for. They ain't accomplished nothing in life. They ain't really do anything. All they got is some good Photoshop pictures, you know what I mean? And that, went to the airport, took that selfie, and now they like telling you to, get on their thing. And I know some people out here really, really doing it big too. So I'm not hating on everybody, but I am hating on them scammers that be out there. But I just love the fact of like, like you said, it's a two-way hustle. It's the mental hustle, and then it's out there actually getting it. And sometimes that's the thing that we don't understand. We always think, hey man, I have to stay up late hours and do this and do that. And sometimes that's just a small portion of the hustle aspect. It's also hustling to find your purpose, hustling to find your passion, hustling to get those things in line, because then it makes everything easier. Because as you start to see those opportunities open up, you could just go out there. So again, there's no way to close it out better than you just close it out. And so we're extremely grateful for you being here. You don't understand how grateful. Again, they say there's sauce, there's different types of sauces, dipping sauce, you know what I mean? You got the sauce that you put on top, but you just gave the gravy, man. You just gave the gravy. So
real quick.
So yeah,
real quick, Festus.
Yes.
Let me just jump in real quick, because you said the gravy. Cedric spent some time out here in DC, so we in DC. I'm gonna say he gave me that mambo sauce. Let's go ahead. He gave me that mambo sauce. You know what I mean?
That's dope. That's dope. So we're gonna take questions from Miss, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Bengali Traori, if I pronounced that correctly. So please go ahead and chime in, ask your questions, or if you want to give some comments, we're happy to receive you.
Hello. Can you hear us?
Yes.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for inviting us to this. This was really fortuitous. We met Olay and Jamark yesterday, and they invited us. And Jay Raya. Yeah. So we wanted to hear more about the program. So we're here listening in and trying to learn more. Our son is at Morehouse, so there's definitely a lot of interest in understanding the best practices and strategies to fund. And he's interested in STEM. He's a kinesiology major looking at pre-med, at med school, I should say. So yes, that's what we wanted to say.
And we're very impressed with the work that you guys are doing, yes. This interview process and everything, that all your responses were just amazing. The questions were amazing. So you all are very impressive. So we're just proud to be in the presence of Black excellence.
We'll see.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, number one. And again, I love these guys because, again, they're always out there reaching out to people. And so I'll just kind of talk about laddering your success and what we're doing and what we're building. And then again, I'll let Cedric chime in, because it sounds like your child could probably get that scholarship. so no, in high school, they're college freshmen. So I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe you might give since I met them, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. So similar to Cedric, I lost my mom when I was in high school. When I was 14, I lost my mom, and when I was 16, I lost my dad. Oh, and my parents migrated to the United States in the 80s, and not having that, parents there, you just struggled in terms of figuring out what to do after high school. And so this kind of sent me on a journey to figure out what I want to do. So I ended up joining the military. After I joined the military, I started going to a community college, and then eventually 4-year college. And in that process, I got involved in ministry, and I was helping students, inner city students, just try to make that transition. And I didn't realize how bad it was. Like, I thought, man, the counselors help you, or this person helps you. And I didn't realize, like, nah, there's just a huge gap, because teachers are focused on you passing their class. They're not focused on what you're going to do with your life. And even the counselors, they're focused on you graduating. They're not focused on what you do after you graduate. And so there's like this gap of passion and purpose and knowledge that is just there. And so that's how we came about to just like try to fill that gap. And so some of the things that we've done and are doing is we created a lesson planning app that takes our methodology that we created called Being, Knowing, Doing. Being is about character, values, and principles. Knowing is about what resources are available and how to use them. And then doing is about executing with excellence. And so we take that and we overlaid that with the state standards, the state learning standards. And so currently we're in Texas. And so it's aligned with the TEKS, and we're still a new startup company. We, people talk about startups. There's no funding out here for, well, let me not say there's no funding. They just ain't give it to us, and we've been applying. Okay. So don't, so anyway, long story short, that is one of the things that we've done. And then some of the other things we've done is we put together a scholarship guidebook to walk students through how to get scholarships, because I got $87,000 worth of scholarships and grants. And like I said, when I initially started helping people, I helped 15 students get into college. And out of those 15 students, they got about $450,000 worth of scholarships, grants, student loan repayment from there. And so I said, okay, well, put it in a book. And so we have, I don't think I have it with me, but we have the guidebook available. We try to make these things as affordable as possible for parents and for students, because like in my case, or even possibly in Cedric's case, you didn't have the parent there to be able to afford, going to College Board or going to one of these SAT preps. So we need different kind of information. We need like, yo, you getting out the mud. This is how you could get it out the mud and still be successful. And so, and again, we just didn't see anybody doing that. And so that's why we created this platform to start that mentorship process to, again, hopefully people, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and I'll share those details in a little bit. But I think for your son, and if you want to support us, just get the scholarship guidebook. That could be, it's like $15. And so yeah, Cedric, if you want to chime in on their questions.
For sure. Well, first, let me, commend you on doing an amazing job, and, shout outs to the HBCUs, Morehouse. Okay. For sure. That's beautiful. And to hear that he's going into STEM, is also amazing. I think, outside of, anything that's offered scholarship wise or anything like that, I think another important component of it, which we can definitely talk offline, and, just so I'm not just a talking head here, we can connect, is, talking to young people. Like I would even, depending on, you all, I'd be willing to have a conversation with your son and just, kind of even talk about just what that progression looks like. Having gone through, the process of, studying, which I'm sure you all have done, but I think, of course, it's always a little bit different when it's not our parents talking to us, right? But I think that those are the important pieces. And I can share some resources as well in terms of, where to look for scholarships. Like I mentioned, bold.org, which is at that nonprofit platform where I have my scholarship position. There's a lot of actual scholarships and things, grants, resources listed that I think that, definitely with what he is planning to do, he would be a great candidate for. I can share that information with you all. But then, again, just, connecting and just kind of seeing, what other things are out there, what other opportunities, I might be able to, send your way. But again, thank you all. I appreciate you being here. Festus, everything that you said, amazing, bro.
Yeah, most def. I just sent you guys the link for.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And so, yeah, if you could read through the resources there, and if you want us to do a one-on-one too, we could do that as well. And hopefully maybe we could join in on that me said and do it like that. You know what I mean? And so yeah. So again, thank you all for being on. Cedric, I can't thank you enough for being here, because again, to me, if we could help the educators, then we could help the students. And that's kind of our thought behind even the lesson planning app was like, well, what if we could make lesson planning easier, right? And so, through the use of technology, and now I'm the creative in the bunch, you know what I mean? I'm like the creative / business mind, but yeah, we have an app that saves teachers between 30 and 50% of their lesson planning time, because it auto generates assignments and things like that. And I know you all are educators, correct?
We are not. I'm a lawyer, and my husband is
I'm a software architect. So
okay.
We were speaking with Olay yesterday, and he was discussing EdTech. I'm not familiar with that industry, but it was something that was very exciting, especially when they described the objective and the mission. I mean, and Oracle has a lot of initiatives around diversity. So it may be an opportunity for us to collaborate on, developing this and, implementing your vision. So thinking that this, might be a great opportunity for us to collaborate on some stuff. That's
definitely. We definitely need to get your email. Hopefully, Olay, you got the contact info already? Okay,
Yep.
Cool. So that's dope, because we will definitely be in contact, because we're just at the place of, again, we're an EdTech startup. We're kind of small, and again, located here. I think we're doing Texas middle school, ELA, social studies, and science. We've already got those completed. It's a little harder to find math lesson writers. I
got you. Hey, let me know. We got some people in EduHustle.
Exactly.
So I like that melanated. Got that melanated mathematics over there.
Oh, you already know. You already know.
I know. We're gonna have to figure out the cost though, because brother pockets.
Come on, man.
But anyway, so look, we went a little bit over. We normally try to do an hour, but again, this is phenomenal episode. So anybody who listens to it, I know they're gonna go get the scholarship, and they're also gonna be super excited. Actually, we have some people coming in kind of last minute. So I would really let me try to see if we get their questions or get some feedback from them. Is it, how do I pronounce this? Yao?
Yeah, yes.
Yao, what's up?
I'm well. How are you? Thank you.
Where you coming from?
I'm coming from Morehouse College. I'm a freshman kinesiology major with a pre-med focus.
Okay, it's your parents. That's your parents right there. Okay, yeah. Welcome. Welcome. Okay, we got a family affair here. I love this. Like to me, it's so cool, because sometimes we have people coming from Nigeria, from Alabama, they just come in, and usually when we do these episodes, we try to have a topic, but then we just try to help people as well. So yeah, we'll give some game and some sauce real quick, Yahoo. And we sent a resource to your parents, and they'll kind of look what works best there. But we also have a free resource, a free ebook, and I'll try to get you that free ebook. The free ebook is 10 things I wish I knew before going to college, right? 10 things I wish I knew before going to college, because Morehouse, a school, shout out to Morehouse. I know some people graduated from there. In terms of HBCUs, hey buddy, in terms of HBCUs, it's Morehouse, Spelman, Howard. They're kind of the upper echelon, you know what I'm saying? And so you're already at a great school. I would say this though, is today, college is not just about education, right? Education and information, you can get that from Google. It's about relationships and networks. And so take advantage of the relationships and network and opportunities there. And so that's one of the biggest things I could say. Again, since you're a freshman, try to use your downtime to fill out for scholarships. Again, we just share that resource with your parents, but that's a big thing. That's one of the things I did. I looked at it as a part-time job, right? If you had 5 hours a week and you filled out for scholarships, and now they got Chat GPT, and you got other resources, brother, you just be like, hey, write this essay, you know what I'm saying? But still, you want to put the truth in there. And that's, I think, one of the bigger things, and probably the harder things for your generation, is our generation, we had to learn, right? Because you had a piece of paper and stuff like that, so you had to actually write the essay. In your generation, you got technology, so sometimes you over leverage the technology, and that impedes your learning, right? Because you didn't actually research the actual information, right? You just use the technology. So that's kind of the 2 cents I'll share for now. I'll turn it over to anybody else who wants to share something.
I think the networking component that you mentioned, Festus, is really, really key. Honestly, your network is going to be able to get you into rooms that other things can't. Just be completely honest. They often say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's both, but it doesn't hurt to know some people. But one other little I would throw out there is really being mindful and cognizant of the resources that you're able to access on campus. I know one of the big major resources for me when I was in school was actually the University Counseling Center, and not necessarily just for like the mental health aspects of things and being able to talk to somebody, but I was actually able to get a job through them, right? Within the Department for Students with Disabilities, where I would actually go and be a note taker for students who, had visual impairments or, hearing loss or anything like that. and, if they couldn't necessarily either attend the class or, get in and get the information, accurately themselves, I would go in and support. And just, that was a way for me to, again, support myself while I was in school and, kind of building through that. And then within that network as well, within that particular office, there are other opportunities open up where I was able to talk to people and, just a lot of different kind of networking pieces that I think really catapulted me in a lot of different areas of my life, growing as a man and just professionally, and just understanding how to move on top of, the monetary benefits, and just being able to, have support and know that, whenever things got tough, there was a community there, within that community that would be, there for me no matter what. So yeah, I would say, look around you. I'm pretty sure at Morehouse, they have some amazing people and networks, different communities that you could probably, tap into, but just, be mindful, careful about how you're moving. But yeah, leverage whatever you can and just make sure that you're there, not necessarily to just, kind of absorb everything, but, also offer value that you have too, because you are, valuable, you're important. So make that known.
100%. Any other gentlemen want to chime in, give a little bit of free game?
Real quickly, I just want to say something. Tell your friends. I think what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build a community. And it's funny, we were just talking about that the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, the importance of building a community. And something just as simple as, hey, I found this resource, I found this app that they have. I think it's really, really helpful. I found this mentor call, because for those of you who, if this is your first time here, what we do is we take these mentor calls and we turn them into podcasts, or we turn them into video episodes or video casts. This is exactly how it starts. And so tell your friends, Sunday, 2 p.m., bring them in, whatever they're dealing with. I mean, like Festus said, we've helped people. We've had emails from people in Nigeria. We've had emails from people in Europe. I mean, this is how it begins. I'm just so happy today that we were able to get this on. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Festus. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Yeah, that's all.
Most def. So if you're watching, you see our contact information on the screen. And again, if you think, hey, look, I would really want to talk, again, because of just the whole situation, it's kind of better to join the mentoring call, even though this live and broadcasted, it's easier for us. But we do one-on-ones, but again, we try not to spread ourselves too thin. So that's why all the information, we try to make it available via social media. So our YouTube, great resource, our YouTube, and we have probably about 18 episodes there. I don't have our Spotify up. The Spotify is Edu-Steps. We just changed the name to Edu-Steps. We kind of seeing what Ced doing. We're like, oh, okay, look, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, so
hit him with the rebrand.
Hit him with the rebrand, right? Hit him with the rebrand. So again, we're just out here changing lives, and that's what we want to do is help people get to their next level and make it a tad bit easier. So with that being said, I'm gonna close us out. I appreciate every last person who is here today, and thanks for staying on, taking the extra time. As we like to say, or Olay, you want to close us? You want to give the closeout from the DC area?
Folks from the DC, from the home of Mambo sauce out here. I mean, there are legitimate reasons to not going to college. There are no legitimate reasons to not getting an education. Folks, thank you so much, Festus and Olay, Daniel Hill, Jamar Crawford, Scott Jr. Thank you so much. So honored to be here for another session of Edu-Steps with Laddering Your Success.
All right, y'all.
Oh, you're still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS Podcast.